this being the day that the Board of Supervisors said,
Yeah.
this is a deadline they put, what is going to be your response, if any, to the Board of Supervisors?
Yeah, so we're actually going to be filing a letter in response. So that should be coming out. It's already drafted. I'm putting on letterhead. I would assume it's going to come out in the next couple hours. Yeah.
Can we get a preview?
Sure. Yeah, all we say is we disagree with the legal analysis. We believe that we're in the right as the top law enforcement officer in the county, and therefore we're going to continue on with the agreement. And it's best because we believe we're protecting public safety. I mean, what we're seeing around the area is there's all of these warrants sitting out there. We know that there's violent criminals, sex traffickers, drug traffickers sitting in our county. And the fact that we're not going and getting them should shock, I think, the people who live here. If we know where they are, we can go get them. Why don't we? And that's what we're trying to do.
What does the 287G agreement, I know we talked about this in vague terms.
Yep.
Because you said there was a case you were bringing that you couldn't talk about until.
Yeah, we have a couple. We actually
Okay.
had one recently that also made the news. He was a Venezuelan national that was really terrorizing one of the neighborhoods here locally. So we had that individual. We've had, we did a sex trafficking sting in Santan Valley. We called it Operation Shepherd's Watch. That ran in mid-December, and we caught an individual there who had traveled across the border and from Yuma, and we found out he was in the country illegally. So we got him trying to have sex, I believe, with a 14 or 15-year-old. Luckily, it was an undercover officer, not an actual child. But even in that sting, we actually found, people think, well, in these stings, you're not catching people with actual children or getting real victims. Well, in that sting, we caught 8 folks. One of the individuals, we found evidence that he was, in fact, currently having sex with a teenager, and so he's been charged with that. So all of these things seem to be connected.
Well, what does the 287G allow you to do that you wouldn't have without it?
Yeah, no, so what the 287G allows us to do is really intelligence sharing, and so we can partner with our federal partners. It's no different than the intelligence sharing we have with DPS or our local law enforcement agencies. So they provide us with a list with those folks. So I'm telling you, these folks are dangerous criminals. We have a list of who they are, where they're located, or at least their last known address. And now we have the ability to go out with ICE and provide our information from our investigators. Because remember, my investigators have been in this community, living in this community, working in this community, and protecting this community, some for 30 to 35 years. And so we know these areas, we know the people who live in these areas, so we can work in conjunction with ICE to go get those dangerous people off the street.
You said ICE provides you a list. What makes someone be on that list?
So most of them are people who already have either warrants out for their arrest or who are associates with people who have warrants. But most of that list are people who actually have warrants currently signed by a judge. Those are the people, I'm telling you, where we know that they've committed dangerous crimes, and now we just need to go get them.
Okay. The first case you described to me back in October involved you was in 287G, but it was a U.S. citizen. How did 287G go in that case? If it was a human smuggler?
Sorry, I forget. I apologize.
It was a human smuggler.
Remind me of the facts. Sorry, I've dealt with like 100 cases, or 500.
Goes in Eloy, crashes into a tree, has 4 or 5 people with him. That was the case you said you used 287G. It was the first time you were bringing state charges on smuggling, but you said you used 287G.
So we brought one. I apologize, I can't remember the specific facts. I wish you would have told me that. I would have brought the case up. We did bring human smuggling charges against one, I think, this week.
Oh, okay.
Now you're tapping into my.
I'm just trying to get what 287, like, the feds give you a list.
So there's multiple things.
How do they decide that you get on the list, and what is the 287? If you didn't have 287G, they wouldn't give you the list?
Yes.
Okay.
So 287G allows us to talk to the feds. So we sign the agreement, the 287G agreement. We go through our 40 hours worth of training, which talks a lot about what the federal process is. It talks a lot about how to protect people's constitutional rights, what due process looks like, at least in the federal system. And then now we can start having conversations. All it is the entry point to start having those conversations.
Without 287G, you can coordinate I mean, there's some level of cooperation.
There absolutely is. So I'll just give you a little bit of background. So like I think you know, we have 8 investigators in my office. Many of these investigators already work on task forces. They work on the human smuggling task force. They work on the drug task force. I told you we work on the child sting task forces. They've been doing this for decades, including working with our local partners, with the sheriff's office, all of our police departments, Apache Junction, Maricopa, Eloy, Florence, and Department of Public Safety, including we work with a lot of our law enforcement partners up in the valley. Like in that Operation Shepherd's Watch, we had Chandler Police out there, we had Apache Junction Police out there, DPS was with us. And so we work in conjunction. Mesa Police was out there, same thing, we work in conjunction. What the 287G agreement allows us to do is get into specific intelligence sharing. We can actually go into the federal databases, and instead of just being provided information for that specific task force, we can now go into those federal databases, search the individuals, and have deeper conversations about what's actually happening in our community.
Okay.
Does that make sense, or do I need to explain a little bit more?
Sort of. I mean, the list to me is new. The idea that they would tell
So
you. Is that like a task force thing where today we're going to go target these 5?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes. That's exactly right.
Okay.
So it's no different than any other task force that we do. Like for instance, I'll give you a good example. We did a probation task force out in Maricopa about 6 months ago. We knew that there were a lot of probationers who had committed. How this came about was we had a police officer shot and almost died out at I believe it was a Circle K in Maricopa back in, I want to say, February, March timeframe of last year. We started looking into it, and what we found out is that this person was on probation for a violent felony. He shouldn't have been possessing a gun. And we had a couple of Maricopa Police Department undercover guys walking into a Circle K just to get snacks because they were actually working another op. As they're walking up, they see this individual who they know has a search warrant, or I'm sorry, an arrest warrant out for his arrest because of a violent felony. And they said, well, I know that guy, and we can get you the name. And as they started to approach him to arrest him, that's when he pulled out the gun and shot the officer, shot him in the spleen. He just recently received an award with the Maricopa police chief. So we started looking into this, and I thought, if they know about this one guy who has a felony and he's already on probation and he already has an arrest warrant signed by a judge, how many more are we talking about? And we found out there are hundreds. And so all of these task forces have target lists, people that they know about. The problem is we're not going to get them. And that bothers me, and it should bother the members of our community. And so that's what we're trying to do, is trying to accomplish that last piece of we need to start arresting these people who are committing violent and dangerous crimes in our community.
Okay. But I mean, Maricopa County Police could.
No, Maricopa, not
Police
county,
Department
yep.
Could have arrested that individual had they.
Well, they tried to,
Right.
but he shot him.
But I mean, they didn't need a 287G to do that.
No, they didn't. But what the 287G agreement allows us to do is find those individuals who are in the country illegally. So think about it in terms of different lists. Just because one law enforcement agency has a list of violent criminals doesn't mean the other law enforcement agency has that same list. So we're talking about multiple lists here. And sometimes, and the problem is we don't always share. And so what we're trying to do as part of my office, since we have really a 30,000 foot view of our county and what is going on in our county. Like for instance, we run data to figure out where are the hot spots in the county, where are the dangerous areas, how do we target those particular areas, how do we keep our community safe, what types of crimes are we dealing with, and so that we can try to reduce them so people feel safe in their neighborhoods. Okay. So what the 287G agreement allows us to do is get access to that federal list of violent individuals who are in the country illegally and living in Pinal County, just within the borders of our county. The agreement doesn't allow us to even go outside the borders of our county, but just within our county, so that we have a better picture about what's actually happening.
The legal analysis, what statutory authority do you believe you have to enter into an agreement with us?
So our statutory authority is my authority as the top law enforcement officer, as the county attorney for Pinal, as the elected official.
You feel you are the kind of government agency as defined in 287G, the statute?
Correct.
You feel you are that instrument of the state?
We are, because that's the authority that the people have given us. The Board of Supervisors has certain authorities under Title 11. We have certain authorities under Title 11. The recorder has certain authorities. And my authority deals with prosecution of cases, obviously providing legal advice to our Board of Supervisors and various agencies. But a big piece of that, and really most of my job is spent with handling that prosecution piece, that law enforcement piece. And since I've been granted that authority under that law enforcement piece under Title 11, I believe I have the authority to enter into a agreement with the federal government so that we can start sharing information so I can protect our community. And what the intent really is to get the information and then help, and because we're on task forces, and we have for decades been on task forces with our other law enforcement partners, to share that information with them too.
Is there a way this works out with the Board of Supervisors without going to court or having?
Oh, I hope so.
Okay.
So let me backtrack just a little bit. People think this all just started like a month or so ago, or in December. It didn't.
Okay.
Back in July, we had an interest in discussing with the board that we were going to sign on to the 287G agreement with them. We had actually, in fact, asked to put it on so we could discuss it in public, the 287G agreement, what it was, the left and right lateral limits, what we would participate in, what we wouldn't participate in, so that members of the public wouldn't be freaked out by this particular agreement. The county manager and the county manager's office specifically refused to allow us to present that in a public meeting. And we have the emails. And in fact, I drafted a PowerPoint presentation. I think there were 5 or 6 slides that discuss what the 287G agreement is, how it would benefit our community, how it would benefit my office and the other law enforcement agencies. They refused to even hear us. They refused to talk to us about it. They refused to agendize it. And so we said, well, I guess we don't really have any other choice. Remember, we weren't asking permission. We were telling them, here's what we're going to do, but we wanted to be fully transparent to them and to members of the public of what we were going to do. And so we later on finally came up. We actually went back and forth with Department of Homeland Security to ensure that we were protected and understood the agreement. That took a little bit of time, and then we finally signed on in December. So that's kind of the history of how this whole thing rolled out.
You signed it in August?
Or I'm sorry,
August.
I apologize.
Right. They said you
December.
signed it in December. Right.
Now I'm getting my dates mixed up. You're correct.
You
So
signed it
we
in
signed it so that was in July, I think around the end of July. We signed it in August, and because we went back and forth to discuss with Department of Homeland that we wanted a few modifications and changes. Some of they agreed, some they didn't. Then we signed it in August, and then of course this came to a head in December.
And then you had the news conference in December, which the board says that's how they first heard about it. But the emails and the PowerPoint would be interesting to see.
Oh yeah,
Share those
yeah.
How often is 287G used in this office? Is it a weekly thing, a daily
No.
thing, a monthly thing?
No, again, I think people have a misconception of what this thing is. What we're really, and we told this to ICE and the Department of Homeland Security early on. What our interest is since we sit at that 30,000 foot view, we see all the cases. We see where the problem areas are. We see the impact of methamphetamines and fentanyl and child trafficking in our communities. What we really need to get a hold of is the intelligence, the information about where the biggest impacts are. You know, because we have a small percentage of people are the ones committing all the violent crime. So if we can target that small percentage, I think we can keep our community safer.
Okay.
And so that's the reason why we decided to discuss this issue with Department of Homeland Security and why we decided to sign on to the agreement. But the agreement we look at as the main purpose, the main effort, is the intelligence sharing. Our investigators are not out kicking down doors. We're not out arresting folks. We're not interested, and since we receive those lists, we look at specifically those individuals who are dealing with violent crime. And so those are the ones specifically that we're targeting and will assist as backup, not going in first, but to assist with intelligence and information about those communities so that the people of our community stay safe, that police stay safe, that HSI and DHS stay safe, and we can arrest those individuals and then hold them accountable for their crimes.
Oh, but you serve as backup to federal authorities?
We will,
Okay.
yes.
And in the 10 minutes we have left, just a couple other things on a different subject. Actually, when I was here in October, the employee who helped me do this was Beth
Yep,
Golden.
yep.
There's a couple of things in her notice of claim, one being about Sheriff Mark Lamb. Do you have
No.
thoughts about Sheriff Mark Lamb?
Mark Lamb and I have known each other for a couple of years right now. I have no issues with Mark Lamb, and I think you'll find, and we will show, well, first of all, we're going to be responding here in the next week or so. So we'll send you a copy of that to all of our claims.
Okay.
But you'll see that those things were not said.
And the use of Signal.
Yes.
Do you use Signal?
So yes, we use Signal. So one of the issues that we found is it's difficult to share photos. So for instance, we're filming this or we're taking photos for this. It was difficult to share photos and information about the events that we participated in with our messaging apps. And so what we did is we used Signal for the purposes of posting things on our public website. And we ended up posting that information both on Instagram and on our X accounts. So that's how we use Signal, was to share photos.
Was there a way to do that? I mean, knowing that I have corporate provided software
Yeah.
that I'm designated to use, and it's not always, is there a way to make it so that you are using something that the county knows of or approves of? And do you feel it's subject to the public records law?
So yes, Signal is subject to I think some things in Signal are subject to the public records law and some things are not. But the things that you'll find in her allegations have already been put into the public. And because they were our photos, discussions about our events, like for instance, one of the events we were out in Sun City, out at a Republican Women's Club event. They asked me to come out and speak. And so that's the type of information that was discussed in Signal, and that information is already in the public square.
Because you were speaking at it.
Because she took photos, and we posted those photos to X.
Oh, sure, but if you're saying you're coordinating the visit to Sun City.
No, we're not coordinating the visit. We're just sharing the photo.
Okay.
Yes.
It's not words, it's all photos?
Well, there's some discussion about, hey, we're gonna put this headline in our X headline, and do you agree or disagree? That's the type of information that we discussed in Signal.
Okay.
And that information was posted to our X account.
But would you consider the drafts of that to be public too?
Move on to the next question.
This is the next question. Yeah, Would the drafts, that back and forth about what headline should we use, would that be public?
I think some of it could potentially be public record. I mean, if you want to see a draft of a headline, we could provide a draft of the headline. But that information you'll see in our emails, and I think we've already provided a lot of that information, if not most of that information, are public records requests that we've already fulfilled.
Okay. Okay, I don't know whether we filed, but I guess we.
Well, I think it was the reporter that wrote the pieces.
For the New Times.
I don't know what newspaper it was, but we provided information to him regarding our public records, and we provided all responsive material to him regarding some of those discussions. And in fact, you can ask him, he already has, she's decided to leak all of our text messages, and so you'll see what is there. They're trying to make it look like there's some nefarious things going on. We're discussing photos and information that's already been posted to the public square.
So have you had conversations with the board, back to 287G, have you had conversations with the board? I imagine now it has to all be formal, or would you entertain some way to?
Yeah, so you'll see in our letter that we're going to put out today, we are requesting again to speak to them. We would like to speak to them. We hope we can come to a resolution, because the last thing we want is some public feud, especially on the issues of public safety. It's just like the sharing of our 287G agreement also protects our law enforcement officers. If they pull somebody over on the side of the road and this person is a potentially dangerous criminal, we would love to get that information into their hands so that they know what they're walking into. That's what we're trying to provide. That's a service we're trying to provide, is to both protect the public and our law enforcement. And I think the Board of Supervisors should see that and can see that, and I think eventually they will come around and see that this is a good thing for our community.
Okay. And I'll send you the case we talked about, so maybe if there's time over the phone to just
Which
dive
which
into
case? The October one?
smuggler case, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that was the one you'd mentioned, that you used 287G. But I think if we can get granular, that would be
Sure.
great, just to get into.
Yeah, we had a recent human smuggling case, and I know the sheriff, both in Pinal County and one in Cochise County, talked about another case of a 9-year-old they found had been smuggled into the country. So that's another potential case. We're still looking at charges for that one, but we have another human smuggling case, and I think there are a few that we have.
And again, like when we talked in October, it was the idea that the human, if you can make it, if you could bring the charge, the state crime might have stricter penalties than the federal
That's
crimes
correct.
in some levels.
That's correct.
But, and again, we'll get granular. 287G can help you get information to make that case.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
It's not only the intelligence sharing, but we will also, so in terms of writing, we get the information, the lists, so the preventative issues. So we know that there are dangerous criminals in our community that just need to be picked up. In addition, we get the information that in case our law enforcement has contact with these individuals, unbeknownst to them, we can provide that information. It'd be no different than if we pulled over a U.S. citizen on the side of the road and then we knew he had been convicted of 3 separate times of armed robbery. Our law enforcement officers should know that information and know who they're pulling over, even if it's for a minor traffic accident or a minor traffic case.
Right, the criminal history, you can pull over at the side of the road, but you can't pull up.
Federal,
Posts. Yeah,
you cannot pull up a lot of the federal stuff, or the fact that this person may have a federal warrant out for their arrest, or the fact that they maybe have committed these dangerous
right,
crimes.
particularly a federal order of removal.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yep.
excellent. I know we said we were on a tight half hour. She hasn't given us 5 minutes yet.
You were watching your clock.
Yeah,
so
I'm
we have
watching
2
my
minutes.
clock. So okay. I appreciate it, yeah.
Sure, that's it?
Yeah, well, for now, we'll get granular. And I'll send an email asking for the case you talked about.
Yeah.
The more recent cases, and then I'll send you a tickler on what the other case was that.
And then we'll get you the letter we're going to send out to the board.
Excellent, we'll look for that, yeah. And then again, if there's time,
there
just
something
really
else?
dive in.
Really quick, I had to record audio onto my phone, so it's separate files. Do you mind giving me like a clap so I can sync up the?
Clap?
Yeah, that's it. Great, thank you. That was my last.